The silence in the cabin was deafening. 1 minute, champagne corks were popping in first class. The next, the captain's voice cracked over the intercom, trembling with genuine fear. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been ordered to kill the engines. We are not cleared for takeoff. In fact, the entire airport sector has just been locked down." Everyone looked at the boy in seat 1A, the kid in the fraying hoodie they had just jeered at, the kid they called a thug. He didn't look up from his phone. He just whispered 3 words that made the blood drain from the chief stewardess's face. "He's here. You think you know power? You have no idea until you see a billionaire shut down a runway to protect his son." This is the story of Leo Sterling. The early morning fog at JFK International Airport clung to the tarmac, grey and heavy, matching the mood inside Terminal 4. Flight 882 to London. Heathrow was the golden route, a flight specifically catering to the elite, the executives, and the old money aristocracy. The first-class cabin on the new Boeing 777X wasn't just a mode of transport, it was a sanctuary of exclusion. Beatrice Calloway, the chief purser for the flight, adjusted the silk scarf around her neck. She prided herself on being the gatekeeper of this sanctuary. She had a radar for riff-raff. She could spot an upgrade seeker from 50 feet away, and she had a particular disdain for anyone who disrupted the aesthetic of her cabin. "Champagne, Mr. Hayes?" Beatrice purred, leaning over seat 2B. Preston Hayes, a hedge fund manager with a face that looked like it had been carved out of aggressive entitlement, nodded without looking at her. He was busy adjusting the cuffs of his bespoke suit, ensuring his Rolex Daytona was visible. "Dry. And make sure the glass is chilled this time, Beatrice." "Of course, sir." Beatrice straightened up, her smile tight and practiced. Then her eyes shifted to the jet bridge entrance. Her smile vanished instantly. Walking onto the plane was a teenager. He looked to be about 17. He was wearing a faded, oversized black hoodie, distressed jeans that dragged slightly at the heels of his sneakers, and large, noise-cancelling headphones resting around his neck. He was black, tall, and walked with a slouch that Beatrice immediately interpreted as disrespect. He carried a battered leather duffel bag that looked like it had survived a war zone. He stopped at the entrance of the cabin, glancing at his boarding pass, then at the seat numbers. Beatrice stepped directly into his path, blocking the aisle. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dropping an octave, losing all its warmth. "Economy boarding is through the second door, halfway down the terminal. You're in the wrong place." The boy looked up. His eyes were tired, bloodshot from lack of sleep. "I'm in 1A, he said softly. His voice was deep, calm, and utterly lacking in aggression. Preston Hayes scoffed loud enough for the whole cabin to hear. 1A. Did you hear that, Beatrice? The janitor's kid thinks he's sitting in the prime suite." A few other passengers chuckled. A woman in 1F, adorned in pearls, clutched her purse tighter, as if the boy were about to snatch it. "Let me see that," Beatrice snapped, snatching the phone from the boy's hand before he could offer it. She glared at the screen. It was a valid boarding pass. Leo Sterling. Seat 1A, first class, full fare. Beatrice frowned. The system must be glitching. Or maybe he stole the ticket. Or maybe he was an employee non-rev abusing the system. It didn't matter what the screen said. Her eyes told her he didn't belong. "This is clearly an error," Beatrice stated, handing the phone back with 2 fingers as if it were contaminated. "Seat 1A is reserved for our VIPs. You probably bought a fraudulent ticket off a third-party site. It happens all the time with people like you." Leo took the phone back, his expression unreadable. "It was booked through the Centurion concierge. It's not an error. Can I just sit down? It's been a long week." "Don't take that tone with me," Beatrice hissed. "And don't block the aisle. Mr. Hayes is trying to relax. I paid $10,000 for this seat, Leo said, his patience thinning, but his voice remaining level. I just want to sleep. $10,000? Preston Hayes laughed, a harsh, barking sound. He unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up, looming over Leo. Preston was a large man, fueled by protein shakes and ego. Kid, looking at you, I doubt you have $10. You're making the lady uncomfortable. Why don't you be a good boy and head back to row 50 where the toilets are? That's more your speed. Leo looked at Preston, then back to Beatrice. I'm not moving. Check the manifest if you want. Call the gate agent. Beatrice felt the heat of the passenger's eyes on her. She was losing control of her cabin. If she let this hoodlum sit in 1A, the prime suite, the other passengers would complain to corporate. It would ruin the atmosphere. It would ruin the prestige. I don't need to call the gate agent, Beatrice said, crossing her arms. I am the authority on this aircraft until the captain steps out. And I am telling you, you are a security risk. A security risk? Leo blinked. Because I'm wearing a hoodie. Because you are belligerent. You are not dressed for the cabin code. And you are disturbing high-value guests, Beatrice lied smoothly. I am giving you one chance. Take your bag, go to economy, and find an empty seat. If you say another word, I will have you removed. Leo tightened his grip on his duffel bag. He looked at the seat, the wide, plush leather chair that promised sleep. He had just come from a 3-day robotics competition in Tokyo, followed by a layover where his connecting flight was cancelled. He hadn't slept in 30 hours. I'm sitting in 1A, Leo said, stepping around Beatrice. He didn't touch her. He didn't shove her. He simply maneuvered his shoulder to bypass her blockade. He assaulted me, Beatrice shrieked, stumbling back dramatically into a bulkhead wall. She hadn't been touched, but the performance was Oscar-worthy. Preston Hayes saw his moment to be a hero. He lunged forward, grabbing the hood of Leo's sweatshirt and yanking him backward. Get off me, Leo shouted, finally breaking his composure as the collar choked him. You don't touch the crew, Preston roared, shoving Leo hard. Leo tripped over his own duffel bag and fell into the aisle, his phone skittering across the floor. Get the air marshals, the woman in pearls screamed. He's violent. Beatrice stood over him, a triumphant sneer on her face. She picked up the cabin interphone. Captain, we have a code red in first class. Aggressive passenger. I need removal immediately. Leo lay on the floor of the luxury cabin, looking up at the disgusted faces of the wealthy elite. He reached for his phone, which had landed near Preston's Italian leather loafers. Preston kicked the phone away. Leave it. You won't need it in jail. Leo didn't fight back physically. He knew better. He knew exactly what happened to boys who looked like him when they fought back in enclosed spaces. Instead, he took a deep, shaking breath. He crawled slightly to retrieve his phone, ignored the kick, and stood up slowly. You're making a mistake, Leo said, his voice dropping to a whisper. The only mistake, Beatrice spat, was letting you board. The removal was humiliatingly public. 2 airport police officers, winded from sprinting down the jet bridge, grabbed Leo by the arms. They didn't ask questions. They saw a distressed blonde flight attendant, a wealthy man in a suit pointing an accusing finger, and a black kid in a hoodie. The math was simple to them. Let's go, son, the older officer grunted, twisting Leo's arm behind his back with unnecessary force. I have a ticket, Leo said through gritted teeth. Check the system. Tell it to the judge, the officer replied, marching him toward the door. As they dragged him past the first-class cabin, Preston Hayes raised his champagne glass, which Beatrice had promptly refilled. Bon voyage, kid. Maybe the Greyhound bus is hiring. Laughter rippled through the cabin. It was a cruel, high-society sound. Beatrice stood at the aircraft door, arms crossed. And don't think about getting a refund, she called out, as Leo was shoved onto the jet bridge. "I'm filing a report to have you banned from the Alliance. Permanently." The cool air of the jet bridge hit Leo's face. The officers marched him up the ramp, past the confused passengers still boarding economy. They dumped him in the waiting area near the gate desk, right in front of the large glass windows overlooking the tarmac. "Sit," the officer commanded, pointing to a plastic chair. "We're running your ID. If you have any warrants, you're going downtown. If not, you're getting escorted out of the airport." Leo sat. He adjusted his hoodie. He felt the phantom sensation of Preston's hand on his neck. He looked out the window. He could see the nose of the Boeing 777X. He could see the pilots in the cockpit running their pre-flight checks. He pulled his phone out. The screen was cracked from where Preston had kicked it. He unlocked it. He ignored his texts. He went straight to his contacts. He scrolled past Mom and Coach until he found a number simply labeled "The Chairman." He hesitated. He hated making this call. He wanted to do things on his own. He flew commercial because he didn't want to be that kid. He entered robotics competitions anonymously because he wanted to win on merit, not because of his last name. But they had put their hands on him. They had humiliated him. And Beatrice had looked at him like he was dirt. He pressed call. It rang once. "Leo?" The voice on the other end was deep, commanding, but laced with immediate concern. It was a voice that usually moved markets. But right now, it was just a father. "You're supposed to be in the air. I was tracking the flight. Why is the dot still at the gate?" "Dad," Leo said, his voice cracking slightly. He hated that it cracked. "They kicked me off." There was a silence on the line. A heavy, dangerous silence. "Who?" "The crew. A passenger. The police." Leo took a breath. "They said I didn't belong in first class. A guy, a passenger named Preston Hayes. He grabbed me, choked me with my hoodie. The flight attendant, Beatrice, she lied. She told the cops I assaulted her." "Are you hurt?" The voice was icy now, controlled fury. "I'm fine, just embarrassed. I'm at the gate. They're running my ID. They're talking about banning me." "Leo, look out the window," his father said. "Can you see the plane?" "Yeah. Flight 882. Keep your eyes on it. Do not move. Do not say a word to the police. Hand the phone to the nearest officer if they try to touch you again." "Dad, don't go crazy. I just need a new ticket." "A new ticket?" Darius Sterling laughed, a dark, terrifying sound. "No, son, you're not going anywhere, and neither are they." "Dad, what are you doing?" "I'm making a phone call." The line went dead. Leo lowered the phone. The gate agent was staring at him, whispering to a colleague. The police officer walked back over, holding Leo's ID with a frown. "Leo Sterling." The officer squinted at the ID, then at the boy. "Any relation to Darius Sterling?" Leo didn't answer. He just looked out the window. Below, on the tarmac, something was happening. The pushback tug that had attached to the front wheel of the Boeing suddenly disconnected and drove away quickly, as if ordered to flee. Then, the baggage belt loader stopped. The ramp workers who were loading the final containers stopped moving. They all looked at their handheld devices. Inside the plane, the drama was just beginning. Beatrice was topping off Preston's drink, feeling victorious. "Trash taken out," she smiled. "We can finally relax." "You handled that beautifully," Preston said, leaning back. "Service as it should be." Suddenly the plane shuddered. Not the rumble of engines starting, but a heavy, mechanical clunk. The lights in the cabin flickered, and then went into emergency mode. Dim, blue auxiliary lighting. The air conditioning vents stopped blowing. The hum of the avionics died. Complete silence fell over the first-class cabin. "What's going on?" the woman in pearls asked. Beatrice frowned. "Just a power cycle. The captain will reset it." She picked up the interphone to call the cockpit, but the line was dead. Then the captain's voice came over the PA system, but it wasn't the smooth, confident pilot voice they were used to. It sounded strained, confused. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Miller. I have some bad news. We have just been denied clearance for pushback." Preston groaned. "Traffic delay?" "Typical. No," the captain continued, his voice trembling. "It's not traffic. Air traffic control has just revoked our flight plan, and ground control has ordered a hard stop on all services to this aircraft. The fuel trucks are being recalled. The catering is being recalled." A murmur of panic rippled through the cabin. "Furthermore," the captain said, "I've just been informed by the tower that the aircraft has been impounded, effective immediately." "Impounded?" Preston shouted, standing up. "What is this? A drug bust?" "Please remain seated," Beatrice cried out, though she looked terrified. The captain's voice came back, softer this time, as if he was reading a message he couldn't quite believe. "We have been ordered to hold position until a representative from the Sterling Aerospace Group arrives. We are told there is a critical safety and liability issue regarding a passenger." The blood drained from Preston Hayes's face. He knew that name. Everyone in business knew that name. Sterling Aerospace didn't just build parts for planes. They owned the leasing companies that owned the planes. They owned the logistics software the airport used. Beatrice froze. The name echoed in her head. Sterling. She looked at the empty seat 1A. She remembered the boarding pass she had dismissed. Leo Sterling. "Oh my God," she whispered, her hand covering her mouth. Outside the window, the flashing lights of 3 black SUVs appeared on the tarmac, bypassing all security checkpoints. They were followed by an airport authority vehicle. The SUVs screeched to a halt right next to the plane's engines. Leo, sitting in the terminal, watched as the convoy surrounded the plane like a pack of wolves. The police officer holding his ID looked out the window, then looked at the ID again. His eyes went wide. "Son," the officer stammered. "Is that for you?" Leo didn't smile. He just put his headphones back on around his neck. "I think my ride is here." The silence inside Terminal 4 was unnatural. Usually, it was a cacophony of rolling suitcases, announcements, and impatient travelers. But near Gate B32, a perimeter had been established. The Port Authority police had cordoned off the area, pushing confused onlookers back. Leo sat alone in the center of the exclusion zone, still in his plastic chair. The officer who had manhandled him moments ago was now standing at a respectful distance, sweating profusely, wiping his palms on his trousers. He had Googled Darius Sterling. He had seen the net worth. He had seen the photos of Darius shaking hands with presidents and prime ministers. He realized, with a sinking feeling in his gut, that his career might have ended the moment he grabbed Leo's arm. Down on the tarmac, the scene was even more dramatic. The lead SUV, a matte black Cadillac Escalade with tinted windows thick enough to stop a bullet, opened its rear door. A man stepped out. Darius Sterling was 6'4", built like a linebacker who had transitioned into a boardroom predator. He wore a charcoal 3-piece suit that cost more than the average American home. He didn't look at the plane. He looked at his watch, then at the terrified airline station manager, Mr. Henderson, who was practically running across the tarmac to meet him. "Mr. Sterling!" Henderson gasped, out of breath. "Sir, this is highly irregular. You can't just drive onto an active airfield. The FAA..." Darius didn't even slow down. He walked straight toward the stairs that had been pushed up to the aircraft door. "Mr. Henderson," Darius said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the wind. "I just got off the phone with the Secretary of Transportation. The airspace above this terminal is temporarily restricted." As for the airfield, considering my company, Sterling Infrastructure, built this tarmac and currently manages the maintenance contracts for the lighting systems you're standing on, I suggest you worry less about the FAA and more about why my son is sitting in a terminal instead of in the seat I paid for. Henderson turned pale. Your son? There must be a misunderstanding. We were told there was a security threat. There is a threat, Darius interrupted, stopping at the bottom of the stairs. He looked up at the open door of the Boeing 737 But it's not the boy in the hoodie. It's the staff you employ. He turned to his head of security, a man named Griggs. Get Leo. Bring him to the plane. I want him to witness this. Sir, Henderson stammered. You can't go up there. The captain has locked the cockpit. The crew is... Darius turned on his heel, his eyes blazing with a cold, terrifying fire. That plane is a Boeing 737-9, tail number N882AA. It is leased to your airline by Apex Leasing. Apex Leasing is a wholly owned subsidiary of Sterling Aerospace. I just revoked the lease, Mr. Henderson. Effective 2 minutes ago, that metal tube is no longer a commercial airliner. It is my private property, and I am going to inspect it for vermin. He marched up the stairs, his footsteps heavy and deliberate on the metal. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere had shifted from annoyance to dread. The auxiliary power was humming low. The air was getting stale. Beatrice was pacing the galley, trying to get a signal on her personal cell phone, but it was jammed. This is ridiculous, Preston Hayes barked, slamming his empty glass down. I have a merger meeting in London in 6 hours. I'm going to sue this airline into the ground. Mr. Hayes, please, Beatrice begged, her voice trembling. We don't know what's happening. I know what's happening, the woman in pearls snapped. It's that boy. He probably called in a bomb threat. I told you he was dangerous. Then heavy footsteps echoed from the entryway. Beatrice straightened up, putting on her best customer service mask, hoping it was the police coming to tell them the threat was neutralized. I'm sorry for the delay, she began, stepping into the aisle. We are doing everything we can. She stopped. Darius Sterling filled the entryway. He didn't look like a passenger. He looked like a storm front. Behind him, 2 large security contractors in tactical gear stood with their arms crossed. Darius scanned the cabin. His eyes were like lasers, analyzing every face. He saw the half-empty champagne glasses. He saw the fearful, indignant expressions of the wealthy passengers. And then his eyes landed on Beatrice. Where is he? Darius asked. Beatrice swallowed hard. Excuse me, sir. You can't be on here. This is a secure... I asked you a question, Darius said, stepping into the first-class cabin. The sheer power radiating off him made Preston Hayes shrink back into his seat. Where is the boy you threw off this plane? The passenger, Beatrice stuttered. He was removed by law enforcement. He assaulted me. He was a danger to... Assaulted you, Darius repeated. He pulled a tablet from his inside jacket pocket. He tapped the screen. That's interesting, because I'm looking at the live feed from the cabin security camera, the one hidden in the bulkhead, the one my company installs for liability purposes. He turned the tablet around. On the screen, a crystal-clear video played. It showed Leo standing still. It showed Beatrice blocking his path. It showed her faking the fall. It showed Preston Hayes grabbing Leo by the throat. The cabin went deadly silent. That's doctored, Beatrice whispered, her face draining of all color. It's a live cloud upload, Darius said, his voice dripping with disgust. You lied to federal officers. You filed a false police report, and you humiliated a minor. At that moment, there was movement at the door behind Darius. Leo walked in. He looked tired, his hoodie slightly torn at the collar where Preston had grabbed him. He was flanked by the terrified police officer from the terminal. Darius turned to his son. The scary mask softened, just for a second. He placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. "You okay?" "Yeah, Dad," Leo murmured. "I just want to go home." "We will," Darius said. "But first, we're going to clean up the trash." He turned back to the cabin, his eyes locked onto seat 2B. "You," Darius said, pointing at Preston Hayes. "Stand up." Preston Hayes was not used to being ordered around. He was a man who fired people for bringing him the wrong coffee. He managed a $2 billion portfolio. He was a master of the universe, or at least, he thought he was. But looking at Darius Sterling, Preston felt very small. He recognized the face now. He had seen Darius on the cover of Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. He knew that while he played with millions, Darius Sterling moved economies. Still, Preston's ego wouldn't let him fold completely. He stood up, adjusting his suit jacket, trying to muster some arrogance. "Now look here, Sterling," Preston said, his voice wavering slightly. "I don't know what kind of power trip you're on, but you're interfering with a scheduled commercial flight. I know my rights. That kid, your son, he was dressed like a thug. He was disrupting the peace. I simply assisted the crew in maintaining order." "Maintaining order?" Darius stepped closer. The air between them crackled. "You put your hands on my son. You choked him. He was resisting." Preston lied. "And frankly, he didn't look like he belonged in first class. Maybe if you taught him how to dress, this wouldn't have happened." Darius laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "You judge a man by his clothes? That's rich coming from you, Preston." Preston blinked. "You know my name?" "Preston Hayes, managing partner at Obsidian Capital," Darius recited from memory. "You specialize in hostile takeovers of mid-sized tech firms. You drive a Aston Martin DB11 on a lease. You have a summer home in the Hamptons that is currently mortgaged to the hilt because your last 3 shorts failed. And oh yes," Darius smiled, a shark baring its teeth. "You are currently trying to close a deal with Magnacore to save your firm from insolvency." Preston's jaw dropped. "How that's non-public information." "I own Magnacore," Darius said softly. The color left Preston's face so fast he looked like a corpse. "What?" "I bought a controlling stake in Magnacore this morning," Darius lied. Or maybe he didn't. With Darius, you never knew how fast his money moved. "I was reviewing the potential partners. I saw your name. I was considering it. But now?" Darius looked Preston up and down with sneering contempt. "Now I see a man who bullies children to feel big. A man who assaults teenagers because he's insecure about his own standing. I don't do business with men like you, Preston. The deal is dead." "No," Preston gasped. "No, you can't do that. That deal, it's everything. If that falls through, I'm ruined." "You were ruined the minute you touched my son," Darius said. He turned to the police officer who was standing awkwardly by the door. "Officer?" "Yes, Mr. Sterling?" the officer said, snapping to attention. "You witnessed this man confess to assaulting a minor, didn't you? And you saw the video evidence?" "Yes, sir. I did." "I'd like to press charges," Darius said calmly. "Assault and battery, endangerment of a minor, and hate speech." "Now wait a minute," Preston shouted, backing up. "You can't arrest me. I'm in first class." "Not anymore," Darius said. "Take him," the officer said, his confidence returning, now that he knew who the real power was. He moved in, grabbing Preston's wrists. "Get your hands off me! Do you know who I am?" Preston screamed as he was spun around and handcuffed. "Yeah," Leo spoke up for the first time. He stepped forward, looking Preston in the eye. "You're the guy who's going to jail." As Preston was dragged off the plane, kicking and screaming, the other passengers sat in terrified silence. The woman in pearls was staring at the floor, praying she was invisible. Darius turned his attention to Beatrice. She was trembling so hard her teeth were chattering. She had backed into the galley, clutching a coffee pot as if it could protect her. "And you," Darius said, his voice dropping to a whisper that was somehow louder than shouting. "Beatrice Calloway, 15 years of service, senior purser." "Please," Beatrice wept, tears streaming down her perfectly make-upped face. "I made a mistake. I thought I was just trying to protect the cabin." He didn't look. "I didn't know." "You didn't know he was my son," Darius corrected. "If he had been the son of a janitor, would it have been okay to treat him like garbage? If he had been a scholarship student on his first trip, would it have been acceptable to lie to the police to get him thrown off?" Beatrice couldn't answer. She just sobbed. "You judged him based on his skin and his hoodie," Darius said. "You saw a stereotype, not a passenger, and because of your prejudice, you escalated a non-event into a federal incident." The captain finally emerged from the cockpit. He looked disheveled. "Mr. Sterling," he said, holding up his hands. "I had no idea. Beatrice told me." "You are the captain," Darius cut him off. "You are responsible for everything that happens on this ship. You authorized the removal without verifying the facts. You took the word of a bigot over the ticket of a paying customer." Darius looked around the cabin. "This plane is grounded," Darius announced to the room. "My legal team is currently filing an injunction against the airline for breach of contract and discrimination. This aircraft will not fly to London today. In fact, it won't fly anywhere until every single member of this crew is investigated and replaced." A collective gasp went through the cabin. "But what about us?" the woman in pearls cried out. "We have places to go." Darius looked at her. "Then I suggest you go to the terminal and book a ticket on another airline, assuming you can find one that tolerates bystanders who cheer on the assault of children." He turned to Leo. "Grab your bag, son. We're leaving." "My bag is—" Leo pointed to the overhead bin. Darius nodded to his security guard, who gently retrieved the battered duffel bag. "Mr. Sterling, please," Beatrice begged, falling to her knees in the galley. "I'll lose my pension. I'll be blacklisted. Please, I have a mortgage." Darius paused at the door. He looked back at her, his expression unreadable. "You should have thought about that before you decided seat 1A was too good for a boy in a hoodie." He put his arm around Leo. "Let's go. The jet is waiting." "The jet?" Leo asked as they stepped out onto the cool metal of the stairs. "My jet," Darius said. "It's parked at the private hangar. We're going to London, Leo. But we're going on my terms. And we're going to have a serious talk about why you didn't tell me you were flying commercial." "I wanted to be normal, Dad," Leo said quietly. Darius squeezed his shoulder. "You are extraordinary, Leo. Never let anyone treat you like you're normal. And never let anyone treat you like you're less." As they walked down the stairs, the flashing lights of more police cars were visible at the bottom, but they weren't for Leo. They were waiting for Preston Hayes. The story was far from over. The plane was grounded, but the fallout was just beginning. The internet was about to wake up. The Gulfstream G700 sat in the private hangar like a resting predator. It was sleek, silver, and radiated a quiet power that the commercial Boeing 777X could never hope to achieve. Inside, the cabin was a sanctuary of cream leather and polished mahogany. There were no overhead bins to fight for, no cramped legroom, and certainly no flight attendants judging you by your hoodie. Leo sat in a wide armchair, staring out the window as the rain began to streak against the glass. The adrenaline was fading, leaving him feeling hollow and exhausted. Darius sat across from him, reviewing documents on a tablet. He had loosened his tie, but the intensity in his eyes hadn't dimmed. He wasn't just a father right now. He was a general reviewing the battlefield. "Drink this," Darius said, sliding a crystal glass of sparkling water across the table. "You look dehydrated." Leo took the glass. "Thanks." He hesitated. "Dad, did you really buy Magna Core just to screw over that guy?" Darius looked up, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "I was already looking at the acquisition. It was a strategic buy. Destroying Preston Hayes was just a value-added bonus. In business, Leo, you never let a crisis go to waste, and you never let an insult go unanswered." "It feels like overkill," Leo mumbled. "The plane grounded, the police, the lawsuit." "It's not overkill. It's a deterrent," Darius said firmly. "If I let them get away with treating you like a criminal, next time it won't be a push in the aisle. Next time it might be a taser or a gun. I need the world to know that the name Sterling comes with consequences." Leo nodded, looking down at his phone. He turned it on for the first time since the terminal. His screen exploded with notifications. "Dad," Leo said, his eyes widening. "Look at this." He turned the phone around. It was TikTok. A video was trending. It had 12 million views, and it had been posted only 40 minutes ago. The caption read, "First-class racism. Billionaire's son assaulted by Karen crew and Wall Street bully. Boycott sky-high justice for Leo." The video had been filmed by a passenger in seat 2A, right across from Preston Hayes. The angle was perfect. It didn't just show the argument. It showed the smug look on Beatrice's face. It captured Preston Hayes saying, "The janitor's kid thinks he's sitting in the prime suite." It captured the physical shove. And most damning of all, it captured Leo's calm, polite refusal to move until he was violently dragged away. Darius watched the video, his jaw tightening. "Who filmed this?" "Username is Travel Blogger Jen," Leo read. "She has 2 million followers. She was live streaming the whole boarding process." Darius pulled out his own phone and dialed a number. "Jessica, it's Darius." "Yes, I've seen it." "No, don't take it down. Boost it. I want that video on every news network in the Northern Hemisphere by the time we land in London. And find out who travel blogger Jen is. Send her a thank you basket. Maybe a voucher for a private jet charter." He hung up and looked at Leo. "The court of public opinion is already in session, Leo. And the verdict is looking guilty for them." Meanwhile, in the corporate headquarters of the airline, panic was setting in. The boardroom on the 40th floor was usually a place of quiet strategy. Today, it was a war room. The CEO, a man named Arthur Pendleton, was screaming at his PR director. "How is it trending #1 globally?" Arthur roared, slamming his hand on the mahogany table. "We are an airline. We're supposed to be trending for low fares, not hate crimes." "It's the algorithm, sir," the PR director, a terrified young woman named Chloe, stammered. "The narrative is too perfect. Underdog kid, arrogant rich guy, complicit staff. And then the reveal that the kid is Darius Sterling's son. It's the ultimate karma story. People are eating it up." "Get Beatrice Calloway on the phone," Arthur barked. "I want her statement." "We can't reach her, sir," the HR director interjected. "Her phone has been ringing off the hook. Doxers found her Instagram. They found her address. She's gone dark." "And the passenger? Hayes?" "Preston Hayes is currently being processed at the Queen's County Central booking," the legal counsel replied grimly. "And sir, there's another problem." Arthur rubbed his temples. "What now?" "Our stock. It's down 12% in after-hours trading. Institutional investors are pulling out, and we just got a call from the FAA. They're launching a formal inquiry into our profiling protocols. But the real issue is the lease." The lease? The Boeing 777X, the flagship. We lease it from Sterling Aerospace. Darius Sterling didn't just ground that specific plane, sir. He's invoked a breach of moral clause in our master contract. Arthur froze. What does that mean? It means, the lawyer swallowed hard, he's recalling our entire fleet of 7727s, 6 aircraft, effective immediately. We have to cancel 30% of our long-haul routes starting tomorrow morning. Arthur collapsed into his chair. This wasn't just a PR nightmare. This was an existential threat. Darius Sterling wasn't just suing them. He was defanging them. "Get me Darius Sterling on the phone," Arthur whispered. "I'll beg if I have to." "I tried, sir," the PR director said softly. His assistant said Mr. Sterling is currently enjoying a movie with his son at 40,000 feet and is not to be disturbed by former business partners. While Leo slept on the plush leather bed of the Gulf Stream, the world below was tearing apart the lives of the people who had wronged him. Preston Hayes sat in a holding cell that smelled of stale urine and bleach. His bespoke suit was wrinkled, his tie confiscated, a suicide risk, and his Italian loafers scuffed. He wasn't the master of the universe here. He was just another guy in the system. He had used his one phone call to call his boss at Obsidian Capital, Charles Whitmore. He expected Charles to have a lawyer waiting for him. He expected a bailout. Instead, the call had lasted 30 seconds. "Preston?" Charles's voice had been icy. "Do not come to the office. Do not log into your terminal. Your keycard has been deactivated." "Charles, listen. It's a misunderstanding. The kid provoked me," Preston had pleaded, clutching the receiver with sweating hands. "You just cost us the Magna Core deal, Preston. Do you have any idea how much money that is? And worse, Darius Sterling just publicly announced he's shorting our fund. Our investors are pulling out faster than rats on a sinking ship. You're toxic. You're fired for cause. Gross misconduct. And don't expect a severance package. Expect a lawsuit for damages." The line had clicked dead. Preston stared at the concrete wall. He had a mortgage on the Hamptons house. He had lease payments on the Aston Martin. He had alimony payments to his first wife. Without his bonus, without his salary, he was insolvent within 60 days. He looked around the cell. A man on the bench opposite him, wearing a stained T-shirt, looked at Preston's expensive ruined suit and laughed. "First time?" the man asked. Preston didn't answer. He curled up on the hard bench and squeezed his eyes shut, wishing he had just let the kid in the hoodie sit down. Across the city, in a modest apartment in Queens, Beatrice Calloway was sitting in the dark. The blinds were drawn. The television was on, muted, the blue light flickering across her face. Every channel was showing the video. Every channel was showing her face, the sneer, the dismissal, the fake fall. CNN had a round-table discussion titled "The Friendly Skies: How Bias Rules the Air." Fox News was running a segment, "Billionaire versus the airline. Who wins?" Her phone buzzed again. It was a text from her union representative. "Beatrice, I'm sorry. The union cannot back you on this. The video evidence contradicts your police report. You filed a false instrument. That's a felony. The airline is terminating you effective immediately to save face. They are also cooperating with the DA regarding the false report charges." "Get a lawyer." Beatrice dropped the phone. She had flown for 15 years. She had survived mergers, strikes, and turbulent weather. She thought she was untouchable in her cabin. She thought she was the queen of first class. She remembered Leo's eyes. Calm. Tired. "I just want to sleep." She had seen a threat where there was only a boy. She had seen a thug where there was a scholar. A knock came at her door. Heavy, authoritative knocks. "Police, open up!" She froze. They weren't wasting time. Filing a false police report against a minor was a serious crime. especially when high-profile lawyers were pushing for an arrest. She stood up, her legs shaking. She walked past the mirror in the hallway. She looked old. Her uniform, usually her armor, hung on the back of the door. It looked like a costume now, a costume for a role she would never play again. High above the Atlantic, the sun was beginning to rise, painting the clouds in hues of gold and violet. Leo woke up to the smell of fresh coffee and pancakes. He walked into the main cabin. Darius was already dressed, looking fresh and sharp, as if he hadn't just spent the night dismantling an airline's logistics network. "Morning," Darius said, not looking up from his tablet. "We land in London in an hour." "Did you sleep?" Leo asked, sitting down. "A few hours. I had some work to do." Darius slid the tablet over. "Update on your friends?" Leo looked. Headline: Obsidian Capital fires. Partner Preston Hayes amidst assault scandal. Headline: Flight attendant charged with filing false police report in Hoodie Air incident. Headline: Airline stock plummets 18% as Sterling Aerospace recalls fleet. "It's a lot," Leo said quietly. "It's justice," Darius corrected. "Swift and absolute. But there's one more thing." Darius reached into his briefcase and pulled out a velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a black titanium credit card. The Centurion. But this one had Leo's name laser-etched on it. "I know you want to be independent, Leo. I respect that. You want to win robotics competitions on your own brain. You want to travel without an entourage. That's admirable." Darius pushed the card forward. "But you are a black man in America. And you are a Sterling. You cannot walk through the world pretending you don't have a target on your back. People like Beatrice and Preston, they look for targets. This card? It's not just money. It's a shield. Use it. Not to show off, but to let them know who they're dealing with before they put their hands on you." Leo looked at the card. He thought about the cold floor of the jet bridge. He thought about the chokehold. He reached out and took the card. "Okay, Dad, I get it." "Good," Darius said. "Now, eat your pancakes. We have a meeting with the Dean of Imperial College London at noon. They want to see your robotics designs." Leo smiled, a genuine smile this time. "Really?" "Really. And Leo? Yeah?" "Next time?" Darius winked. "Wear a suit. It confuses the enemy." Leo laughed. For the first time in 24 hours, the weight on his chest was gone. But the story had one final twist left. The real-life element wasn't just about lawsuits or firing. It was about how the world changed for Leo, and not necessarily for the better. Fame, even the accidental kind, was a double-edged sword. 3 months later. The Grand Hall at the XL London Exhibition Centre was buzzing with the electric energy of the International Robotics Summit. It was the Super Bowl for nerds, a place where the future was built with soldering irons and code. Leo stood at his booth, adjusting the servo motor on his prototype, an autonomous disaster relief drone designed to navigate collapsed buildings. He was proud of it. He had built it from scratch, coding the AI navigation system himself. But unlike previous years, he wasn't just another anonymous genius in a sea of tech enthusiasts. "Excuse me?" a voice asked. Leo looked up, expecting a judge or a fellow engineer. Instead, he found 3 teenagers holding up their phones, recording him. "Are you Leo Sterling, the Hoodie Air?" one of them asked, grinning. "Can we get a selfie? Do the pose. You know, the I'm not moving face?" Leo sighed internally. He forced a polite smile. "I'm just here to show my drone, guys. It's called the Searcher Mark IV. Want to see how it climbs rubble?" "Yeah, cool, whatever," the kid said, snapping a photo anyway. Man, it was so cool when your dad bought the airline. Did he really fire everyone? He didn't buy the airline. Leo corrected patiently, a script he had repeated 100 times. He just made sure they followed the law. And he didn't fire everyone, just the people who broke the rules. The kids wandered off, already posting the picture. Leo watched them go, feeling a strange mix of validation and exhaustion. This was his life now. He wasn't just Leo the coder anymore. He was a symbol. He was a meme. He was the face of Gen Z fighting back. He looked across the hall. Standing in the VIP observation deck, watching him like a hawk, was Griggs, his dad's head of security. Leo couldn't go to the bathroom without a security detail anymore. The anonymity he had cherished was gone forever. That was the price of the viral fame. He had won the battle on the plane, but he had lost his privacy. But he had used it for something good. He looked at the banner hanging above his booth. The Sterling Initiative, Tech Scholarships for Underprivileged Youth. After the settlement with the airline, an undisclosed sum that rumor placed in the high 8 figures, Leo hadn't bought a car or a private island. He had started a fund. He was paying for 50 kids from low-income neighborhoods to attend coding camps and engineering programs. Kids who looked like him. Kids who wore hoodies. Mr. Sterling? Leo turned. It was a man in a sharp suit, holding a clipboard, a recruiter from Google DeepMind. "I've been watching your drone navigate the obstacle course," the recruiter said. "The pathfinding algorithm is brilliant, efficient. We'd like to offer you an internship this summer, in Mountain View." Leo smiled. "I'd love to apply, but I want to go through the standard process. No special treatment." The recruiter chuckled. "Son, I don't care who your father is. Your code speaks for itself. That's the only language we speak at DeepMind." It was the first time in months Leo felt truly seen for his mind, not his last name. Thousands of miles away, in a dingy diner in New Jersey, the lunch rush was hitting its peak. "Hey, table 4 needs water. And where are those fries?" Preston Hayes wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. He was wearing a grease-stained apron that smelled of old onions. "Coming right up," he muttered. He grabbed the pitcher of water and hurried to table 4. "Excuse me," the customer said, looking up. It was a young guy in a suit, probably a junior analyst on his lunch break. He squinted at Preston. "Hey, don't I know you?" Preston froze. "No, I have a common face." "Wait," the guy laughed, pulling out his phone. "You're him. You're the first-class bully. Preston Hayes. Oh my God, you're waiting tables?" Preston felt his face burn. He had lost everything. The lawsuit from Darius Sterling had drained his savings. The criminal charges had resulted in a felony conviction for assault, meaning he was barred from holding a securities license ever again. His wife had left, taking the house. He was living in a studio apartment above a laundromat, working double shifts just to pay his probation fees. "Can I get a picture?" the guy asked, laughing cruelly. "My boss will love this." "Please," Preston whispered, his arrogance long gone, replaced by a hollow, crushing shame. "Just let me work." He walked back to the kitchen, the laughter of the customer echoing in his ears. Karma wasn't a lightning bolt. It was a slow, grinding erosion of his life. He had treated people like servants, and now he was serving them. And Beatrice? Beatrice Calloway sat on a park bench, feeding pigeons. She checked her watch. It was time for her community service shift, picking up trash along the highway. She had avoided jail time by taking a plea deal, but her career was over. She had applied to every airline, every train service, even cruise lines. The moment they ran her background check, the "Do Not Hire" flag popped up. She watched a plane soar overhead, climbing into the clouds. A tear traced a line down her cheek. She missed the sky. She missed the hum of the engines, but she knew she would never fly again. She had let her prejudice ground her, permanently. Back in London, the expo was closing. Darius Sterling walked onto the floor, flanked by his usual security. He walked up to Leo's booth. "I heard you got an offer from DeepMind," Darius said, examining the drone. "News travels fast," Leo said. "I have eyes everywhere." Darius smiled. "Did you take it?" "I told them I'd apply like everyone else." Darius nodded, pride swelling in his chest. "Good. You know, Leo, I can buy you a company. I can buy you a fleet of planes, but I can't buy you respect. You earned that today." Leo picked up his drone. He looked at his dad. "Thanks for coming to get me, Dad. Back at the airport." "I'll always come get you," Darius said, his voice serious. "But next time, maybe just fly private. The coffee is better." Leo laughed. "Maybe. But I think I'll stick to economy for a while. Keeps me humble." "Just don't sit in the exit row," Darius joked, putting an arm around his son. "I don't think the world can handle another viral video." They walked out of the hall together, father and son, leaving the chaos of the past behind them, ready to build the future. And that is the story of how one moment of judgment grounded an entire airline. Leo Sterling didn't ask for a fight, he just wanted a seat. But Beatrice Calloway and Preston Hayes learned the hard way that you can never judge a book or a boy by the cover. They saw a hoodie and saw a threat. They should have looked closer and seen the king standing behind him. In the end, karma didn't miss. It stripped the arrogant of their power and gave the voiceless a platform. It reminds us all that true class isn't about the ticket you hold or the suit you wear. It's about how you treat the person who can do absolutely nothing for you. What would you have done if you saw Leo being kicked off? Would you have stood up or stayed silent? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. Share this video with a friend who needs to see a bully get what they deserve. Thanks for watching, and remember, be kind, because you never know who you're talking to. See you in the next one.